Welcome back to Us Against Everything.
Although today I think we might change the name.
Just for one episode. Us Against the World. Come on, it's Tupac. We had to.
I really don't think there was another choice. Because a lot of times when we do these cases, it seems like it really is us against the world.
So true. Well, if you guys have been following along lately, you'll know you've been waiting for this trial. And now we're finally here. It's starting Monday. And Landen and I wanted to sit down and have a completely different kind of conversation about it. Unfortunately, I had some back issues this week, which made me fall flat on my ass. So I was not in the mood to make an episode. The pain was too much.
But don't worry, I definitely got her all back to tip-top shape.
Thankfully, if it was up to me, I'd be out for 20 days plus.
Probably the rest of the year. But we are not going to be doing the entire Tupac story from the beginning.
Nope. We're giving you the highlights we actually need, and then we're moving forward.
In September of 1996, Las Vegas, Tupac was shot after leaving the Mike Tyson fight. He dies 6 days later at just 25 years old. Nearly 30 years later, Duane Keefe D. Davis is facing trial.
And that's your refresher.
You're welcome.
Because honestly, I really want to know what's happening now.
Tell me.
We've heard the stories about the case for like 30 years. We've watched the documentaries. We've heard interviews. We've heard many accusations. We've watched people change their stories. And now some of those stories could finally end up inside of a courtroom,
where saying something carries a little more weight than just saying it on YouTube.
Just a little. And there's a lot of people connected to this story. Some of them could become important witnesses. Some have already spoken out publicly. Some have stayed relatively quiet.
Snitches get stitches.
And some
have definitely not stayed quiet.
Which brings us back to Keefe D. Because this man has talked and talked and talked.
He has done interviews, documentaries, podcasts.
At some point, somebody should have taken the microphone away.
Probably several microphones, and including a pen.
Because now we're going to find out how much of what he says and has been saying over the years can actually be held against him. For someone who was such a powerhouse, really not using his brain too much.
Do not think he understood that portion.
No.
Now, was he telling the truth? Was he exaggerating?
Was he trying to sell a story? Was he trying to make himself seem more important? Living those glory days, you know? And most importantly, what can prosecutors actually prove?
Because that is what actually matters to the jury.
Exactly. And then we have everybody else surrounding this case. People who were there, people who claimed they didn't know what happened, people whose names have been connected to Tupac's murder for decades, people who could potentially walk into the courtroom and suddenly change the entire tune of the trial.
And that is where this is going to become interesting.
It's really interesting. I honestly think it's going to be like a show, because I have a list of people I want to talk about, like who can testify, who can probably testify, who will be helpful, who will not be helpful, who will actually create problems for them type of people.
And then there's a question of what happens when somebody's story today doesn't match something that they have said years ago.
I mean, and that's what we're waiting for, because like that's 30 years. That's a long time ago. How are you going to remember certain details, you know?
I mean, if you were truly there that night and you witnessed this, you should be able to remember this.
It's a good point. It should be like a tattoo. I also want to talk about something beyond the legal case, because this is where the episode is going to get fun for us. My visions on the trial.
And I know that you've had quite a few of those.
I have. And you know what? TikTok has been like silencing me. They're not letting my videos flow. So, we had to get to this point and make an episode.
Plus the questions that everyone also keeps asking.
Yes, because you guys have had, I don't even know, like 50 to 70 questions sent to me. So many. You guys already know that there's another name that constantly keeps coming up with Tupac as well.
Biggie.
Exactly. And that's a conversation we're going to have a little later in the episode as well. Now, Tupac was only 25 years old.
25.
That's honestly crazy to think about. He was only alive for 25 years, and we are 30 years past that before we're getting answers. Older than him, you know what I mean?
And imagine if these people would have came sooner, we could have gotten justice for Tupac and his family a lot sooner.
I think there were a lot of dirty cops on the payroll which prevented that from happening.
Well, definitely, but I'm just saying, like, if perhaps Keefe D talked a little sooner and people took him seriously, we could have gotten to this trial sooner.
His family has been waiting almost 30 years to see someone stand trial for his murder. So while we're absolutely going to have fun today, we're also going to throw some shade where shade deserves to be, but we're also going to talk about some wild theories.
And let me tell you, there are plenty.
So many. So let's start with the people that are about to become very important. The defendant, the attorneys, the witnesses.
Let's get into it.
Welcome to Us Against Everything, Us Against the World. Let's talk Tupac. Okay, so let's start with the obvious person here, Keefe D.
The only person that's actually on trial right now.
And I think that's important because there are about 400 other names surrounding this case. And sometimes when you start reading about it, you're like, wait, who's on trial again?
Tupac's murder has more characters than Game of Thrones.
And half of them have nicknames.
Correct.
Keefe D, Suge, Baby Lane, Bubble Up. I keep saying Bubble Up every 5 minutes. Freaky.
It definitely sounds like we're reading a lineup of some sort of 90s rap festival.
But Keefe is the defendant. And what prosecutors are alleging is not necessarily that Keefe personally fired the shots that killed Tupac. That's something I think people are still confused about.
They are basically saying that he orchestrated it. Put it together.
Right. Their allegations basically that he was the shot caller behind what happened and provided the gun. And under Nevada law, prosecutors don't necessarily have to prove that Keefe was the person who pulled the trigger to hold him responsible for the murder.
Which doesn't surprise me. I mean, you're an accomplice to murder.
Right. So when people say, well, Keefe didn't shoot Tupac, that automatically doesn't get him out of this.
And that's not the question the jury is even being asked, honestly.
Exactly. And that makes this trial a lot more interesting because the prosecution isn't trying to solve every single mystery surrounding Tupac's death. They're trying to prove Keefe's alleged role in it. And I'm going to say something right now. I think people are going to have to keep remembering and reminding themselves of that throughout this trial. Because Tupac's murder has become such a gigantic conspiracy rabbit hole that we're going to hear names that immediately go,
what does that even mean?
Exactly. Sometimes it just might mean something. Sometimes it might mean absolutely nothing. Someone's name appearing on a witness list doesn't mean they're suspected of killing Tupac, or does it?
It just means that they potentially have information relevant to something being presented.
Right, which brings us to the witness list. Oh boy.
It's definitely a list.
It's a list, all right. And one of the biggest names on it is Suge Knight.
Which is a very important witness, considering he was literally sitting right next to Tupac.
Exactly. Suge was the driver of the BMW. Tupac was sitting right next to him, front seat. Suge survived. If Suge actually testifies, I'm sorry, I'm seated.
Front row.
Snacks ready. Because there are very few living people who can say, I was inside the car when Tupac was shot. Suge can. And does Suge remember? What did he see? What does he say now? Considering the book suggested that Suge made eye contact with Keefe D. Suge isn't exactly known for being absolutely let me make everything easy for everybody.
No, definitely not.
He's currently serving a prison sentence in California. So obviously there are logistics involved too. And I think that if he actually testifies, that could easily become one of the biggest moments of the entire trial.
Especially because people are going to analyze every single word. But I also am very interested to see if Suge is going to say anything. Because, I mean, he apparently locked eyes with Keefe D. And why did he survive and not Tupac?
Right. And I mean, it's very odd because in the book itself, although he never points fingers at Suge, he was like, well, guys, remember, Suge and I knew each other from back in the day. We had a relationship. He keeps putting that out there to kind of point at him without pointing at him.
Right, it's almost like he's trying to take him down with him, like we concocted this together.
Right. Suge, blink twice.
Right, Morse code.
Don't start. Now, here's another name on the witness list that made me go, excuse me? Nevada Governor Joe Lombardo.
Excuse you.
Which sounds random until you know his history.
Before he was governor, Lombardo spent decades with the Las Vegas Metro Police and eventually became sheriff. So his appearance on the witness list isn't necessarily some huge, mysterious political connection, but like, imagine being a juror.
The state calls the governor.
I'd be like, what kind of trial did I just get picked for?
Day 1, Tupac. Day 2, Suge Knight. Day 3, Governor of Nevada.
Welcome to Vegas, baby. And then we have other Vegas names. Oscar Goodman,
Former mayor of Las Vegas.
and before becoming a mayor, a very well-known defense attorney who represented some, let's just call them interesting clients.
Organized crime defendants.
Mobsters, Landen.
I was trying to be professional.
And his connection here is interesting because his son is the attorney Ross Goodman, previously appeared alongside of Keefe D in court, although he hasn't officially retained him as a lawyer. So I want to know why Oscar Goodman is potentially being called. What piece of the puzzle does he have to help explain? Because that's what I'm going to be watching with all these witnesses. Not just, oh my God, that person's name is on the list. I want to know why.
What are prosecutors trying to establish through them?
Exactly. And then we're going to start getting into people connected to much more direct connection to Tupac and Death Row. Reggie Wright Jr., former head of security of Death Row Records.
Which is a very interesting one.
Absolutely, especially because Keefe D recently made accusations involving Reggie Wright Jr., which Reggie Wright did deny. So if they're throwing around names...
Receipts.
Receipts, because this is where I'm going to be annoying throughout this entire trial. Don't just tell me something, show me. If somebody makes an accusation, back it up, because there has been enough stories about Tupac's murder over the last 30 years to fill an entire library.
And some of those stories contradict other stories.
Exactly. And we're not going to play the how do you want it. We're playing...
How do you prove it?
Thank you. See what we did there?
That was very terrible.
That was amazing. Moving on, then we have people connected to Tupac's family who appear on the broader witness list. Then we have his sister, his stepbrother, his cousin, all coming up too. And obviously I'm interested in what the prosecution might need from Tupac's family, but I'm also hoping that part is handled with some sensitivity.
Absolutely, because, you know, they've been dealing with this for 30 fucking years.
Right. Those aren't the witnesses where I'm sitting here looking for drama. I want to hear what they have to say and understand why their testimony is relevant. Now let's get into some of the names where I'm like, oh.
Here we go.
Eugene Gene Deal.
Diddy's former bodyguard.
Diddy. And immediately everyone listening just went, Diddy. Because you cannot talk about Tupac conspiracy theories for longer than, 7 minutes before someone brings up Sean Combs.
It's been happening for decades.
Diddy has denied involvement in Tupac's murder.
Shocker.
I'm shocked.
He denies involvement in his wife's murder.
He also says those baby oils aren't his either.
Right. His name has been part of theories surrounding this case for a very long time. People are obviously going to pay attention.
Especially given everything else happening right now surrounding Diddy himself.
Right. And I don't want to jump 10 miles ahead, but if Gene Deals testifies, I want to hear what he is actually asked, because that tells us a lot more than simply seeing his name on a piece of paper.
Definitely context matters.
And here's another one, Yosef Ja.
Co-author of Keefe D's book.
Bingo. Now that one's going to be a big one too, because remember what Keefe's defense has essentially argued about his book? Keefe has said things in that book that prosecutors believe are incredibly important. The defense has tried to distance him from some of it by arguing that portions were fictionalized or weren't really his words. So who's the one person I would want to talk to?
The guy who helped write it.
Hello? Because if the defense is saying, well, you can't take everything in this book literally, okay, let's ask the co-author. How was the book created? Where did they come up with these details? Hell, where did they meet to do this? Did he embellish anything? Did you embellish anything?
And that is potentially very important for the testimony, because they need to know who provided those details, who was really telling the story, and is any of these stories actually real? And then is there real evidence to this?
Right. Now, this book probably has become something that Keefe D probably wishes he could
Toss it up.
Landen. Okay, that was actually good. But here's the crazy part. The judge has already ruled that the memoir can be used at the trial. So that book isn't disappearing. Neither is the 2008 police interview that the judge had also ruled admissible. And this is where Keefe D has a problem. That has nothing to do with whether you believe every single thing he's ever said. There are multiple versions of Keefe D talking about Tupac, different years, circumstances, audiences.
And now the jury has to hear some of it.
Exactly. So I think one of the biggest themes of the trial is going to be credibility. Who does the jury believe?
And what was he actually lying about?
That to me, I don't know. I get a vibe of him exaggerating a lot of the truth here. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Definitely. If you listen to the book, a lot of it seems a little exaggerated to begin with, but it also does have a lot of interesting evidence in it.
Ladies and gentlemen, our client has said some extremely incriminating things over the years, but don't worry.
He was lying.
Sir, I would love to see the jury's face during some of that. And we haven't even gotten to the jail audio.
Exactly. And also, I don't think we would be going to trial if it was all a lie.
Right. We're saving that because it deserves its own moment. But before we get there, there's one other group of witnesses I think people are overlooking. The investigators, the detectives, the people working on the case at different points over the last 30 years. Because they have to explain how it went down back in 1996 to an arrest of September 2023.
Well, like you said, definitely a lot of dirty cops probably threw papers out, testimonies out, evidence out, whatever, to kind of keep their noses clean, you know?
Absolutely.
That is a huge gap, though, that we're going to be listening to.
Massive. Why Keefe D wasn't charged earlier. That's a big one.
What evidence becomes the most important?
How much of this case ultimately comes down to Keefe D's own words, which I think most of. There is no DNA results that suddenly solved Tupac's murder. So this is an old case built largely through statements, witnesses, circumstances, and of course, Keefe D himself.
Which means the witnesses become extremely important.
So if Suge Knight takes the stand in the Tupac murder trial almost 30 years later, come on, that is a moment.
Absolutely.
And depending on what he says, it could be extremely important. So now we've got some of those players on the board. What the hell are these two sides actually going to argue?
Because they're basically looking at the same 30-year history and telling two completely different stories.
As always, completely different. And let's start with the prosecution because their basic theory is actually pretty straightforward. They're saying what happened to Tupac wasn't some giant mystery conspiracy involving 17 people, even though I believe it was. The government, the Illuminati, the secret tunnel underneath Las Vegas.
Which it probably was. For sure. Because there goes half the internet.
Sorry, guys. Their case is basically revenge. Tupac and Death Row Group get into the fight with Orlando Anderson at the MGM Grand. A few hours later, Tupac shot. Prosecutors say Keefe D helped orchestrate the retaliation.
Which is why that MGM footage matters so much.
Because you don't need somebody 30 years later telling you that fight happened. We can see it. Tupac is there, Suge is there, Orlando Anderson is there. And the footage gives prosecution something concrete to build from. Then they have to connect what happened at the MGM Grand to what happened later that night. And that's where Keefe D becomes their focus.
Particularly because of his own statements.
Which is probably the worst part of the case for him, because imagine being your own most problematic witness.
Without even taking the stand.
Exactly. And that is an accomplishment. The prosecution has years of statements to work with, including the 2008 interview. Their job is going to be taking all of that and telling the jury that this isn't just a guy telling stories. He knew these details because he was involved.
Which, that is the difference.
Exactly. Because knowing something isn't automatically participating in it. So prosecutors still have to work to do it. They need to show Keefe D simply isn't present. They need to prove the role that he allegedly played. And that is where I'm going to be paying close attention. And we also have to talk about the biggest elephant sitting in the courtroom.
Orlando Anderson.
Orlando Baby Lane Anderson. He was never charged with Tupac's murder and denied involvement before his own death 2 years later. But his name is obviously central to the prosecution's theory because he's the person Tupac and others attacked at MGM. And Orlando can't testify.
And neither can several other people that were also connected to that night.
Exactly. Because you have people who could potentially answer major questions who simply aren't here anymore, which means attorneys are going to be reconstructing parts of the story through their own witnesses and evidence. But I think that creates opportunity for both sides.
And reasonable doubt can live inside those gaps.
Exactly. Now we're going to talk about the prison audio, which, by the way, is a new piece of evidence that was recently coming forward. It's wild.
Because the timing alone.
Right before the trial. I swear this case has been sitting around for like 30 years and suddenly it's like, oh wait, one more thing.
Surprise.
Like someone found a Tupac bonus track. I wish.
Right? I was about to say that would be dope.
But unlike the internet, I'm not immediately calling this the smoking gun. First, what are we actually dealing with here? We're talking about an audio reportedly recorded while Keefe was in jail, and the part getting everyone's attention is him allegedly talking about what happened after the MGM fight.
Particularly the idea of retaliation.
Exactly. Because their theory is already about Tupac shooting, it was retaliation for Orlando Anderson getting attacked in the MGM Grand. If Keefe D is talking about that retaliation himself,
that is definitely potentially useful. Even in his book, he talks about how angry it made him that Tupac beat up his nephew.
Right, but I want this whole damn conversation.
And not just 15 seconds on TikTok.
Exactly, because we've all seen how it works. Someone posts 12 seconds of audio, everyone loses their mind. And then 3 days later, you hear the 30 seconds before, and you're like, oh, okay. All right, now we're going to say the name Diddy.
Ugh. Ew! And somewhere half of the internet just leaned closer to their phone.
Because you cannot go down the Tupac rabbit hole without eventually getting there. There has been allegations and theories connected to Sean Combs and Tupac's murder for years. He has denied his involvement. He's never been charged in connection to Tupac. Again, dirty cop energy.
Yeah, that's the fact.
Correct. Now we want to talk about why people keep talking about him. One of the biggest reasons is Keefe D himself. And this is where Keefe creates yet another complication and complicated situation because he's made allegations over the years about a supposed payment connected to killing Tupac and Suge Knight.
And that never has been proved in court.
Right. So I'm not sitting here saying this happened, except I feel like it did. I'm saying Keefe D has said it happened. And now Keefe is actually going to trial.
Because it could potentially complicate their case.
If the prosecution theory is retaliation after the MGM fight, do you really want to suddenly open the door and start talking about an alleged $1 million hit?
I mean, that would make it a much bigger story.
Exactly. And it would not be the cut and dry retaliation of Orlando.
Was Keefe just exaggerating again?
I mean, I don't think so, because it was a very specific 1 million, and the fact that he didn't pay it proves so much. One, that he's a cheap ass, and two, because he didn't want no one coming after him. I don't know. For me, I feel like Diddy would totally do something like that. And even in the book, Keefe never got payment from Diddy. But there are other reasons Diddy's name has remained connected to all of this. The East Coast versus West Coast feud. Bad Boys, Death Row, Biggie, Tupac, Suge. By 1996, these weren't just two rappers who didn't like each other. This thing had become enormous.
And extremely public.
Exactly. Tupac wasn't very subtle.
Hit 'em up exists.
Exhibit A. And that's when I think people sometimes accidentally combine the two different things.
Which now brings us to Suge.
Oh, Suge. People ask me all the time about Suge Knight. Did he know? Was he involved? Why was Suge barely injured? Why was Tupac riding with him? There are a million Suge theories.
And some significantly crazier than the others.
Or are they? I have also been somebody that believes that Suge Knight has absolutely been connected in some way to Tupac's murder. I don't know why he was driving that night. To me, it's like, why are you driving, bro? You can just get someone to drive for you.
Exactly. Like, what was the purpose of him? That clearly is a setup.
Exactly. The idea of Suge sitting beside Tupac in the BMW as some master plan, I feel that.
Definitely, especially considering he's sitting right beside him when somebody just starts shooting.
Right. I believe that they're all connected. Tupac was getting too big for his britches. At least that's how they felt. They felt like he was getting too angry. They felt like he was being paranoid. They felt like he was wasting away and not focusing on the plan. He was worth a lot of money. But he was also cutting people off. And they did not want that kind of shit happening. Sorry, but they didn't. But anyways, those are the main players of this case. It's going to be wild as shit. All right. And finally, here's another one.
Biggie.
Biggie, one of my favoriteest spirits to channel. Because 6 months after Tupac's murder, Christopher Wallace, aka Biggie, was murdered in LA. And this case is officially still unsolved. Maybe Keefe D can talk about that one a little bit more.
Right, let's see if he's got any stories about that.
Two of the biggest rappers in history, both murdered 6 months apart. Neither case resulting in murder conviction all these years.
Until potentially now with Tupac. But my opinion, I think that maybe some of the bigger names like Diddy and them were getting too jealous of the fact that Biggie and Tupac were much bigger and much better than them.
Oh, absolutely. And they did not want those two to collaborate at all. Like
they would have made a beautiful baby masterpiece.
Yeah, they would have. They totally would have given birth and had their little Biggie Tupac baby music. It would have been epic. But
epic.
They couldn't handle that. Because if Diddy wasn't in the spotlight, nobody could be.
Facts.
Alrighty, now we are going to get into the psychic questions. And you guys have sent me tons and tons, but today we're going to narrow it down as much as we can, so let's get into it.
All right, question number 1. Does Keefe D ultimately get convicted of Tupac's murder?
I believe he will. Not only do I feel like he's going to get life in prison, but I believe he's going to shoot himself in the leg throughout this trial. So yes, I absolutely feel like the conviction will happen for the family, but it's not all the answers. It's honestly only 1/8 of the pie.
Does Keefe D take the stand, or does his legal team decide that he has talked way too much?
He has not taken that stand. He wants to. Like, he thinks that he could, like, dig himself out, but he will not.
Is there, like, a Hail Mary moment where they're going to feel like their case is tanking and they put him on the stand?
It is very, 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 very possible at the very, very bitter end, but I highly doubt it.
Will this trial finally establish who actually fired the shots that killed Tupac?
here's the thing. I believe that there is another vehicle that really was never spoken about. There's the one that Keefe was in with his crew, but there was also another car that I believe that the bike cops that pulled over Tupac to begin with, referencing the loud music and yada yada, also made a call into the cops. And I believe that they also shot them from the other side. And ultimately, I believe that they will suggest Orlando was the shooter. And although I believe Orlando did, in fact, shoot, I feel like the final blow came from a cop on the other side.
Was Tupac's murder really spontaneous retaliation for the MGM Graham fight, or was this something already happening behind the scenes before that fight even occurred?
I mean, the fact that there was the Diddy $1 million bounty on Tupac's head shows that that was just the beginning. Orlando was shooting his mouth off like he always did. And I feel like because he had such a team to back him up, he thought he could just say whatever he wanted. At that moment, I feel like that's why they gave it to him, because there were other problems. Like, they had issues with this crew already. It was just taking care of business. And honestly, in my opinion, if Tupac wanted him dead, he would have been dead. They just sent off a little warning to him.
Did everyone allegedly inside that white Cadillac know Tupac was going to be shot that night, or were some of the people inside that vehicle unaware what was about to happen?
Everyone in Keefe's car, I believe, knew what was going to happen. They were searching for them. Even if Orlando did not get his ass beat, I still believe it would have happened. Maybe a little later in the evening, maybe after they hung out, hell, maybe even after Tupac performed. But something was going to happen one way or another.
Does Suge Knight actually take the stand and testify? And has Suge known more about Tupac's murder all these years than he's publicly admitted?
I believe Suge will be taking the stand, and I don't think he's going to have much of a fucking choice. But I do believe that he had a connection. Suge had a lot of dirty cops, and I believe this is the piece that I really feel that it's connected. It's because he had the connection to the cops. He was able to get the cops off of them, but he was also able to trigger a cop to kind of come. I believe his friend, one of his dirty cops, was the one who shot Tupac from the other side. So yeah, I believe he knew, just pretending like he didn't. They were informed to be careful when they shoot him. Shoot him low. Don't shoot him where he needs to, where it's going to hurt him. He was informed that he was going to get shot to at least make it look like an accident or a killing.
Does Diddy's name come up during this trial, and who brings him into the conversation?
I definitely believe that, his security guard's going to bring him up for sure. That's without a doubt. I mean, it was his security. I also feel like they're going to talk to Yosef Jah. I believe he's also going to talk about the Diddy side of things as well. But yeah, I definitely feel like it's going to get brought up a couple of times.
Now, do Keefe D's allegations about this alleged payment that was connected to killing Tupac and Suge ever make it in front of the jury? And is there anything that's going to be presented that will support those allegations?
The defense is probably going to try their absolute hardest to bring it in, because then it would take away from the fact that it was them getting back from Orlando. You know what I mean? So it's very possible. I think it'll come up a little bit.
Were Tupac's murder and Biggie's murder actually connected, or did the two separate murders become intertwined because of the East Coast, West Coast feud?
That one's tough to say. I feel like they're connected because all the same players, but I feel, and I hate to say this, but I feel like because of what happened to Tupac and then the uproar that happened at the time and how big his death was, Diddy was like, we need that kind of attention over here so I can make money off of it. I really, truly believe that Diddy was one of the main people behind Biggie.
Now, did Biggie know anything about what happened to Tupac, and did Tupac's murder ultimately put Biggie himself in danger?
I believe that he trusted Diddy too much, even at the end. But I do see that he started to question it a bit once he saw his behavior and how selfish and self-involved he was.
Now, if they solve Tupac's murder and finally expose that information, will it help investigators understand maybe who killed Biggie only 6 months later?
Yes, I do feel like there's there's going to end up being a connection. Whether it's connected to this case or after the case, I'm unsure. But I see that there is going to be a tie where we bring justice for Biggie's family.
Are there bigger names out there who will appear somewhere in both Tupac and Biggie's stories who deserve a much closer look at?
Diddy. And yes, a few people. Absolutely. And even Keefe D. I know Keefe, I don't believe he had anything to do with the shooting of Biggie, but I also feel like he knew it was going to go down.
Now, could allegations involving corrupt law enforcement become more important when we start looking at the connections between Tupac's murder in Las Vegas and Biggie's murder in Los Angeles?
Oh, hell yeah. Because there are so many dirty cops between each and every single one, including making sure that no one got arrested. I really believe that Suge was a big piece of why no one got arrested at that point, including Keefe D. And I feel like although there might not have been a payment through Diddy, there could have absolutely been a payment through Suge Knight.
Why did it almost take 30 years to bring this and someone to trial for this? Was it simply a lack of evidence or cooperation, which I do not believe? Or were there people with power, influence, or connections who helped certain information stay buried, which is what I believe?
That. I agree with you wholeheartedly. I feel like this was all intertwined, keeping things quiet. And there's still people keeping things quiet. There's one cop in particular that I think Keefe does reference in the book. I think his name is Richardson, some shit like that. I don't know. I know that him specifically, I feel like he is a significant piece. And he was like in charge of all the other dirty cops.
Now, our final question. When this trial is finally over, are we going to understand only what happened to Tupac? Or could what comes up finally start connecting the dots involving Tupac, Biggie, Death Row, Bad Boy Records, law enforcement, and one of the biggest unsolved chapters in hip-hop history?
I do feel like we're going to be able to put some pieces together. I do feel like things that come from this trial will throw evidence in another direction. I really wish that they were going to put Diddy on the stand. I don't think that's going to happen. But I really feel like if they had done that, oh my God, he's so bad. Like his temperament, he doesn't like being talked down to. If that prosecutor decided to go in there and be like, hey, what did you do here? We can get him to react heavily. You know what I mean?
Fuck yeah.
But he's not going to go up there. So unfortunately, he still has protection, ironically. But anyways, guys, that is our Tupac episode. I'm going to be doing daily videos, maybe one, maybe two, depending on how much information we get each day on the Tupac trial, on TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, wherever you're following us. But don't forget to come and take a watch. We're going to come back and do a little update once we get the verdict in about 5 to 6 weeks from now. Cannot wait. But until then, it is always us
against everything.